I carried the chipped mug with both hands, wrapped in a cloth napkin from our old kitchen. It still smelled faintly of burnt coffee, Beckett's favorite roast from back when we made do with a second-hand espresso machine in the garage. The building loomed above me now, glass and steel, the headquarters of Viral Dynamics. It bore his name. Not ours. Never ours. The receptionist barely glanced up when I stepped inside. "Hi, I'm here to see Beckett Viral," I said, soft but sure. "It's our company's anniversary." I thought I'd surprise him. She tapped the keyboard. Then frowned. "Your name, ma'am?" "Calla Ryland." Another pause. "I'm not seeing you listed as family or scheduled today." "I'm his wife." The words came out slower than I intended. She turned toward the security desk. "Sir, can you assist?" A man in uniform walked over, glanced at the screen, then at me. "I'm sorry. We can't allow walk-ins. Especially during family protocol hours." "Family protocol?" I repeated. He nodded, polite but firm. "Yes. His wife and daughter just left." I felt the room sway. "His what?" Before I could finish, the elevator pinged. A woman I had never seen stepped out, laughing into Beckett's phone, I knew the case. Her heels clicked as she walked right past me, not a glance spared. My hand tightened around the mug's handle, suddenly heavy. Like holding a secret too long. The receptionist had already turned her attention elsewhere. I stepped back, phone in hand, dialing before I could reason myself out of it. Beckett didn't answer. Instead, a clipped voice greeted me. "This is Leah, Mr. Viral's executive assistant. He's currently in a strategy session with his wife and daughter." "I'm his wife," I said, voice low. A beat. "I'm sorry, could you repeat?" The call disconnected. A magazine on the coffee table caught my eye. It was sleek, all black and white, with the title, The Visionaries. On the cover, Beckett stood beside a woman, Maren Heller. A caption beneath, Maren Heller and Beckett Viral, the visionaries behind tomorrow's energy. I wasn't in the photo. Or the article. Or even the acknowledgements. They kept the walls. Just scrubbed me out. My reflection stared back from the glass wall. I looked like a ghost, half there, unrecognized even by the world I helped shape. Maren emerged from the same elevator, this time alone. She walked past me, offering a brief, courteous smile. "You should schedule next time," she said. "Protocol matters." I didn't answer. I was too busy trying to remember when my name stopped mattering. A group of staff shuffled past, laughter bouncing through the lobby. I lingered near a corner, listening without meaning to. "CEO family dinners tonight," one said. Maren's daughter's starting to look just like Beckett. Wasn't there someone before her? Yeah. The founder's ex. What's her name again? I walked away before they finished. My hands trembled as I opened my phone. I typed, "Just dropped by. Happy anniversary." But I didn't send it. I stared at it, then deleted it before my thumb could hesitate. They replaced me while I was still breathing. The vibration startled me. I looked down, an automated message, co-founder disbursement, $0 posted. I stepped outside. The city moved around me, unbothered. People hustled. Taxis honked. No one looked twice at the woman holding an old mug like it was sacred. I found a ledge and sat. Set the mug beside me. A janitor paused nearby, emptying a trash bin. Delivery drop-off? He asked, pointing to the mug. I smiled faintly. You could say that. I watched the mug, unclaimed. Like a piece of evidence in a case no one filed. I wasn't erased. I was archived. And that's worse. Because archives are for things no one wants to deal with until someone decides to rewrite history. Have you ever built something with your whole soul only to find out you were never meant to stay in the picture? Tell me in the comments. I want to know. And just like that, I became a guest in the house I helped build. Morning sun sliced across the blinds, tracing familiar lines across the floor, but nothing felt familiar anymore. I rolled out of bed and reached for my laptop with a heaviness I couldn't place, like I already knew what I would find. I typed in my email credentials. The screen blinked once. Then, access denied. I blinked back. Tried again. Same message. My heart sank, not panic yet, just a quiet dread. I opened a new tab and logged into the joint bank account. A red notification bar greeted me, account access revoked due to ownership update. I stared, breath caught. Ownership update? Dialing the bank hotline, I held the phone between my shoulder and ear. The hold music was cheery, which made it worse. A voice finally came through. Thank you for verifying. I see here you've been removed from the authorized parties list. What? No, that's... There has to be a mistake. I understand this is frustrating, Ms. Ryland. Unfortunately, we can't restore access without written consent from Mr. Verrill. Written consent. For the account I opened. I hung up. My inbox dinged. Subject, credential deactivation, Verrill Systems HR. We're sorry to see you go. Effective immediately, your credentials have been deactivated. Please return any company property within 14 days. I never resigned. I never even got a meeting. Buzz. Another notification. Your insurance coverage has been closed due to termination of employment. Health. Dental. Vision. All gone. A message popped up on my phone. No name. Just a number I didn't recognize. You should hear this. There was an audio file attached. I hesitated, just for a second, then pressed play. Beckett's voice, unmistakable. She's not going to go quietly. Marin responded, she'll fight back. She always does. Beckett, not if we freeze her out first. No funds, no records, no platform. Starve the signal. A beat of silence. Then laughter. Hers. Then we say it was mutual. Keep it clean for the optics. One last line. Beckett again. She's just the ex now. The recording ended. Another message popped up. That's only part of it. I have more. Silas. I sat frozen, phone in hand. Not from fear. From calculation. The silence in the room was thick, but my mind wasn't still. It was moving. Plotting. Counting every word. I turned on the TV, more out of habit than anything. And there she was. Marin. Sitting perfectly poised on a plush white couch. The backdrop behind her said Good Morning Bay Area. The host smiled too wide. We're joined this morning by the visionary wife behind Verrill Systems. Marin smiled back, her hands folded over each other. She was wearing it. My necklace. The simple silver chain Beckett had given me after we closed our first funding round. For the woman who saw the future, he'd said. A cut-in appeared, Beckett's sister, Ivy. Marin has always aligned with the company's core values, she said smoothly. She's the voice behind our purpose. Then Beckett's pre-recorded quote played. Marin has always been the heart of this mission. My hand gripped the remote so tightly it creaked. They'd rewritten the story. Live. I walked to the desk, pulled open the drawer, and dug through the mess until I found it, a battered manila folder with one label, Founding Docs, Originals. I sat at the kitchen table, pulling out old receipts. The first wire transfer. My name. My account. The loan that bought our first server. I flipped to the company registration. My name was on the original filing, next to Beckett's. I opened the online version again. It was gone. Redacted. Removed like I'd never existed. I printed it all. Every page. The printer whirred as I stared ahead. They say truth doesn't need to scream, I murmured. But it sure helps if it's notarized. Have you ever felt your name being erased one login, one document, one story at a time? Tell me. I stood, gathered the papers, slid them into a plastic binder, and tucked it under my arm. The copy center was only 3 blocks away. I didn't shake this time. The clerk looked up as I stepped inside. Can I help you? I smiled, calm but focused. I need 20 copies. And a notary. The envelope was thick, expensive. Satin finished, embossed with the Veral Systems crest, only it wasn't the old logo anymore. It had been rebranded, stylized, reimagined. Just like everything else. The invite read, Founders Gala, a celebration of visionaries. And right beneath the header, a full-color image of Beckett and Marin smiling into a skyline that used to mean something to me. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I got dressed. I chose my black coat, the one I wore the night we closed our Series A, and pinned the original Founders lapel badge over my heart. No new crest could rewrite that. The venue was a marble-drenched downtown tower, the kind with valet parking and too many mirrors. At the check-in desk, a young woman scanned the list, then again. Her eyes dropped. I'm sorry, Ms. Ryland, you're not on the list anymore. Not your name must have been missed. Not let me check again. Just final. I stepped aside, heart thudding with something too raw to name. From the hallway, I could see the ballroom bathed in golden light, strings playing, champagne flutes sparkling. A group of staff whispered nearby, one gesturing toward the mezzanine. New lodgings all prepped for the Legacy family, someone said. Beckett and Marin, another asked. Yeah. The whole Veral line. I turned before they could see me. Have you ever shown up thinking you still belonged and found yourself invisible? I didn't cry. I watched. Through the etched glass panel, I spotted Beckett across the room, hand at the small of Marin's back. She threw her head back, laughing. My Founder's pin gleamed on her lapel. Back at my apartment, I sat in the dark for a long time before turning on the light. The silence was a strange comfort, at least it didn't lie. Then the phone rang. Cassidy Ray. My mother. I heard about the gala, she said like it was casual. Listen, if you want those legal docs, I still have the original equity breakdowns and dated drafts. I'll give them to you. I waited. But, she added, I want 10%. Of whatever you claw back. My jaw clenched. You left when I was 19 and 2 weeks late on rent, I said. I left your father. Not you. But you never came back. Silence. I'm not asking for a favor, she said. It's business. I remembered the scraped knees, the year I skipped the science fair because no one would drive me, the smile I wore too long because I was taught that being nice made me easier to love. Nice didn't save me then, I said. It won't save me now. I hung up. When someone who abandoned you steps in with a deal, do you accept relief or walk away stronger? My phone buzzed again. Anonymous, check the server room. 4B files. I can help. I stared at the message, heart steadying. The building loomed quiet and empty when I arrived just before midnight. I wore black, hair pinned back, like I was walking into court, not a corridor. Silas Boone met me near the freight elevator, mop in one hand, badge in the other. He nodded once. No words yet. In the storage room off 4B, under flickering light, he handed me a small USB drive. I've been watching, he said. I don't trust many people. But I trust a paper trail. What is this? I asked. They made it look clean, he said. But I tracked every timestamp. You never signed the transfer forms. They backdated everything. Why help me? You gave a scholarship to my daughter. STEM program. 2 years ago. You probably didn't know. I'll never forget that. I blinked. Of all the reasons, this one hurt the most, in a good way. This isn't revenge, I said. He nodded. No. It's correction. Back at my apartment, I plugged in the drive. A folder popped open. Ownership_2019.pdf, founder_votes.xlsx, equity_dilution_notice. I scrolled. Each document confirmed the same thing, I never forfeited my position. I was never legally removed. They had buried me under revisionist paperwork and branding gloss. They erased the history, I whispered. I'll bring it back. Ever had someone in the background who remembered you when no one else did? One file caught my eye. Transfer to Verrill Family Trust, November 1st, 21, original shareholder, Calla Ryland. The walls of the rented suite were beige and thin, but quiet. I needed quiet. 2 weeks had passed since the USB from Silas, and every night since, I'd traced lines between legal filings and my name, erased in public, but still etched in metadata. I sat cross-legged on the floor, laptop open, timestamp windows cascading across the screen like falling dominoes. They scrubbed my name, I murmured. I'm rewriting the ledger. The door creaked open. Dr. Elora Quinn stepped in, sleek in navy, eyes scanning the room before settling on the documents I'd laid out like a chessboard. You were right, I said, nodding to the PDF. Record from November 2019, original equity allocation. My name's there. She adjusted her glasses. They say you never held shares. I smirked. Funny how amnesia only applies to the people holding the pen. We'll subpoena the originals, Elora said. They're counting on drama. They don't expect you to fight smart. I looked up at her. They're wrong. Have you ever found a hidden file that changed how you saw your own story? My inbox dinged. An email labeled Urgent Verrill Trust Transfer, locked PDF attached. Password protected. But the subject line alone made my stomach clench. I tossed my phone aside and pulled open the drawer I hadn't touched in months. Inside, dust-covered and silent, lay the old company-issued smartphone I never returned. I charged it. Waited. Then opened the file directory. Family Rebranding 2021. It was buried under folders named innocuously marketing_Q3 and benefits_archive. Inside, image files, emails, and voice recordings. I tapped play on the one dated exactly 1 month before the transfer. Beckett's voice crackled to life. "Optics matter," he said. "The story needs a face." Then Marin's voice, "Kala's not going to walk away." "She won't have a choice," Beckett answered. "You can't fight when no one hears you." I closed my eyes. Rage didn't rise. Strategy did. I sent the clip to Elora. She replied in seconds, perfect timestamp. "You just gave us the chokehold." When someone rewrites your past, how do you reclaim it? My phone buzzed again. Subpoena service of process. I was being dragged into court. Not as a co-founder. Not as a shareholder. As a stranger. Then the press release dropped. Kala Ryland is not, and has not been, affiliated with Viral Dynamics since 2021. There was Beckett's quote, as if scripted, "We wish her well on her new ventures." News segments looped the headline, "Ex-partner or just a startup ghost?" I watched from the window of my rented suite. The tower I helped fund shimmered across the city like a sneer. "They redefine me before I get to speak," I said to no one. Elora walked in, coat draped over one arm. "They're setting the narrative. Cornering you." "Let them," I said. She stepped forward. "Are you ready to go live?" I stared at the blinking cursor on my screen, then clicked record. Have you ever been erased publicly and felt the need to speak before the headline? I scheduled the live stream for 6 p.m. Title, The Invisible Wife, Origins. I laid out everything, my original share certificate, the time-stamped PDFs, Beckett's voicemail, the legal forms, and most importantly, my voice. The storm hadn't hit yet, but I could feel the humidity in the air, the way you do before the sky breaks. I closed my eyes and whispered, "We build together or we don't build at all." I hit save. Then I pressed schedule. If your identity matters to you, don't give it away quietly. On the screen, just before I shut it down, a message blinked. Unknown sender, they know you're live. Plan B engaged. 6 months after the scandal broke, Kala Ryland no longer needed headlines. She had the ocean. Her mornings began in silence, save the waves and the occasional knock of her mug, now branded with the invisible wife, now seen, on her studio desk. Her podcast had grown from whispers into a movement. Today's episode? Boundaries and Resurrection. When you stop begging to be understood, she said into the mic, you start becoming heard. The email from Harlan Tave landed like a feather with weight. The Ryland Act just passed committee. She stared out the window, not for answers anymore, but peace. Then her phone lit up, missed call. Area code, Beckett's. She listened hours later. His voice was quieter, broken. They're investigating Marin. I resigned. I'm sorry. She deleted it. I don't need apologies, she whispered. I need air. Later that week, at Stanford, she spoke before young founders. I didn't burn bridges, she said. They collapsed under the weight of lies. As applause settled, she spotted Silas in the back row, nodding once, enough. At sunset, she walked the shore and pinned her old founder badge to driftwood. She didn't look back. The mornings in Monterey didn't rush. They arrived slowly, light trickling over the tide like it had nowhere else to be. That suited me. 6 months had passed since the livestream, and I no longer measured time in crisis. I measured it in ocean waves and the rise of steam from a mug that read, "The Invisible Wife, Now Seen." My community studio sat just off the boardwalk. Tuesdays were for workshops, women who had walked out of boardrooms in marriages with nothing but their last name in a half-packed box. I called them resets. We never talked about revenge, only resurrection. That morning, I recorded a new podcast episode titled Boundaries and Resurrection. My voice was steady, low, and no longer performing strength. It just existed. When you stop begging to be understood, I said, you start becoming heard. The message light blinked on my screen. An email from Harlan Tave, "Your courage sparked reforms." They're calling it the Ryland Act. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then closed my eyes and whispered, "Quiet wins last." What would peace look like if you finally stopped fighting and just lived? My phone buzzed again, one missed call. Unknown number, but the area code was unmistakable, San Francisco. Beckett. I sat there, fingers hovering above the screen. I could have ignored it. Instead, I tapped voicemail. Beckett's voice filled the room, older, softer, cracked. "They've opened a federal inquiry. Marin's out. I just wanted you to know. I'm sorry." He paused. "I should have listened when you said silence doesn't mean consent." Click. Sorry is currency that loses value after bankruptcy. I grabbed my coat and walked to the beach, where the wind was always honest. I let the sea pull the voicemail from my memory like the tide swallowing footprints. Ambition once felt like love. Now, I could see it was just a disguise we both wore to survive. "You don't heal by reopening the wound," I said aloud, "you heal by refusing to scratch it." I slid my phone from my pocket and deleted the message. No reply. No fury. Just finality. Would you answer the call from the one who broke you, if it came too late? As I turned to leave, my phone buzzed again, new subscriber milestone, 1 million listeners. The podcast had become a movement. And I wasn't whispering anymore. National media began circling the name I'd reclaimed. Headlines read, "The Invisible Wife podcast hits 1 million, launches mentorship fund with legal advocate Elora Quinn. Marin Heller stood trial. Beckett vanished from panels and press." I didn't attend the hearings. I was invited. Politely. Declined, quietly. Instead, I stood in a lecture hall at Monterey Bay University. A student asked if I regretted anything. I smiled. I didn't burn bridges. I let them collapse under the weight of their own lies. Another student asked what I learned most from loss. "Pain was the tuition for wisdom," I said. And I paid in full. Have you ever realized your silence said everything words couldn't? Near the back of the auditorium, I saw him, Silas Boone. He didn't wave, didn't speak. Just gave a small nod. I returned it. It wasn't just loyalty. It was record-keeping. The kind that didn't live in headlines but in hearts. Later, at sunset, I walked alone down the shoreline. The water never asked who I used to be. It just welcomed who I had become. I recorded my final episode of the season from the sand. "Sometimes justice isn't a gavel," I said, voice soft under the wind. "It's peace of mind. The world forgot my name once. I made sure they'd never forget my story." I reached into my pocket, pulled out the founder's pin I used to wear like armor, and pressed it into a driftwood post. A marker, not of war, but of arrival. Have you ever rebuilt yourself from the silence they left you in? Tell me your story, I read every one. Out across the horizon, the sky split into orange and blue. No answers. Just the sea.